Marcus Chen wiped the grease from his hands onto his overalls and squinted at the dying sun over the New Mexico desert. Another day, another dollar barely earned at the salvage yard. His modest trailer home sat on the edge of nowhere, surrounded by rust and broken dreams. The knock on his door came at exactly 7:47 p.m. He wasn't expecting anyone. Out here, visitors were rarer than rain. Marcus shuffled to the door, his bad knee clicking with each step. A souvenir from his warehouse job before the accident that had left him scrambling for work. The woman standing on his doorstep didn't belong in this world. She wore a suit that probably cost more than his annual income. Midnight blue with an iridescent sheen that caught the fading light. Her hair was styled in an elaborate updo, and her eyes, those unmistakable violet eyes, stared at him with an intensity that made his breath catch. "Hello, Marcus," she said, her voice carrying that familiar melodic quality he'd heard only once before, 12 years ago. "Zara?" The name came out as barely a whisper. She smiled, and suddenly he was 23 again, working the night shift at the illegal smuggling warehouse, the job he'd taken out of desperation. He remembered finding her in that containment pod, her small frame curled up, those violet eyes wide with terror. She couldn't have been more than 14 in human years, though he'd later learned the Xylothian aging process was vastly different. The smugglers had been dealing in live cargo, sentient beings sold across the black market. Marcus had stumbled upon her by accident during his rounds. He should have walked away, should have kept his head down and his mouth shut like he'd been doing for months. Instead, he'd made the stupidest, most reckless decision of his life. He'd freed her. Not just freed her. He'd helped her escape, given her his savings, and pointed her toward the underground railroad that helped displaced aliens find their way home. The warehouse had burned down 2 days later under mysterious circumstances. Marcus had lost everything, his job, his savings, and nearly his freedom when the authorities came asking questions. "You remember," Zara said, stepping forward. "May I come in?" Marcus stepped aside, suddenly very aware of the threadbare furniture and the dishes piled in his tiny sink. "It's not much." "It's perfect," she interrupted, her eyes scanning the space with something that looked like reverence. "Do you know what I see when I look at this place, Marcus? I see the home of the bravest human I've ever met." He laughed bitterly. "Brave? I'm a 45-year-old man living in a trailer, barely making ends meet. That warehouse job was the best thing I ever had, and I threw it away." "You threw it away to save a life," Zara corrected. She reached into her jacket and pulled out a sleek tablet. "Do you know what happened after you freed me?" Marcus shook his head, sinking into his worn armchair. "I made it home to Xyloth. I told my family what humans did, what you did. My father was one of the wealthiest industrialists in our system. He died 5 years ago, but before he passed, he made me promise something." She tapped the tablet and a holographic display emerged, showing numbers that made Marcus's head spin. "He made me promise that if I ever found you, I would repay the debt our family owed to humanity. To you." "I don't understand," Marcus said, his voice hoarse. "This is your account," Zara explained, turning the tablet toward him. 100 million credits. Converted to Earth currency, that's approximately $75 million. "It's yours, Marcus. It always has been. It's been waiting for you since I turned 18 in your years." The room seemed to tilt. Marcus gripped the armrests of his chair. That's impossible." "I can't." "You can and you will," Zara said firmly. "But that's not why I'm really here." She sat down on the couch across from him, her posture softening. "When I went home, I told everyone about humans. Not the stories they'd heard, about your violence, your primitive nature, your selfishness. I told them about a man who risked everything for a stranger, who saw a frightened child and chose compassion over safety." She leaned forward, her violet eyes shimmering with emotion. "Because of you, Marcus, the Galactic Council reconsidered humanity's application for membership. Because of you, my company has invested billions in Earth technology and education. Because of you, 300,000 enslaved beings have been freed through the foundation I started in your name." Marcus felt tears burning his eyes. I couldn't leave you there. You were just a kid." "Exactly," Zara whispered. "In a galaxy full of advanced species, civilizations millions of years old, it was a human. A struggling, desperate human who remembered what it meant to be kind. Do you know what the other species say about humans now? They say you're terrifying not because you're violent, but because you're good, Because even at your lowest, even when it cost you everything, you choose to do the right thing. She stood and walked to the window, looking out at the desert. This is humanity's gift, Marcus. Not your technology or your art or your science. It's this inexplicable, illogical, beautiful tendency to save the drowning stranger even as you yourself sink. Marcus wiped his eyes, a laugh escaping through his tears. That's a hell of a gift. Sarah turned back to him smiling. It's the only gift that matters. She placed the tablet on his table. The money is yours. Use it however you wish, but I hope you'll let me be part of your life now. I've spent 12 years becoming someone worthy of the faith you showed me. I'd like to know the man who made it possible. As the stars began to emerge over the New Mexico desert, Marcus Chen looked at the alien girl he'd saved. Now a woman, a millionaire, a force for good in the galaxy, and understood something profound. He'd thought he'd lost everything that night 12 years ago. In reality, he'd invested in something far more valuable than any warehouse job could ever be. He'd invested in hope, and sometimes hope paid dividends beyond measure.